Hello, my name is Kirsty and welcome to Upside Down Books. Today we are going to be doing some more mini reviews. So I have 4 books today to discuss with you. We're going to try and get through them nice and fast, otherwise I can foresee this being a very long video. I haven't been very good with keeping on top of my actual recent reads, so I can't remember what books I'm supposed to be doing next following on from the previous ones I've done, but we're just going to go with the ones that were on my pile to review, so let's get cracking. Now, none of these reviews are going to contain spoilers until I say so, so you can watch these and then I'll tell you when to turn your volume off and turn it back on again to avoid the spoilery discussions. The first book I'm going to discuss today is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Now, a lot of people are reading this, a lot of people have read this, a lot of people are talking about this. I rated this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars and I really enjoyed it. That's my bottom line there, is that I did really enjoy it. I thought it was not quite the book I was hoping it would be. I'm not sure exactly what I was expecting from this book, but I did feel like it was much slower paced than I thought it would be. The first maybe quarter of the book follows directly on from the previous one. I think at the end of the day, considering how large this book was, I was expecting there to be a lot longer, a lot more, I don't know, action and sort of things happening. I felt like things took a long time to get going in this one and just didn't quite live up to like the pace and intensity of A Court of Mist and Fury. Nonetheless, I did think it was really good though. I still enjoyed where all the characters went. I loved the ending, it made me cry a lot, but again wasn't quite how I was expecting it to finish. So I definitely recommend finishing off this series. So if you've currently just got up to A Court of Mist and Fury, do continue on and finish it off because it's going to give you some nice closure, and there are some interesting plot developments in this one which I think will be really important going forwards with the series. So now to discuss some spoilers, I will place a little image here, and when that appears, turn your sound off if you don't want to hear the spoilers, and when it disappears again you can put your sound back on. The main things that annoyed me with this one was just the middle of the book. Nothing happens. There's the big meeting between all the High Lords and that was interesting, but again didn't seem to achieve much because then Hybern just sort of attacks them anyway and their plans don't ever really come to fruition, you know, it just sort of happens. I really enjoyed the start of it with Feyre in the Spring Court again and the way that she sort of is taking them down from the inside. That was really cool, but I was expecting that to honestly be like 50% or more of the book, not just the first couple of 100 or just 100 pages. But I did enjoy that bit. I just wish Sarah J. Maas had stretched that out a bit further. The other thing is that no one dies in this book. Literally no one dies except the sister's father, and I thought that, I don't know, I've never been that emotionally attached to Feyre's dad. He's not a strong character, he's not a particularly prominent character, he barely features in the series and we're not exactly built up to love him heaps. So when he's sort of killed off as the only significant person being killed off, I was a bit like, yeah, okay, that was pointless, a bit weird. I would have liked to have seen someone like Cassian or Azrael or even just Amren to stay dead. That would have been really great. Not that I want them to die, I just feel like this book, you know, called for it. This book needed someone to die in the sort of battle that was happening towards the end. Yeah, I don't know, the battle scene was just a bit strange. It just seemed to be a little bit wishy-washy in what was actually being achieved. The other thing I didn't like about this book was that Lucien is just pushed aside, and for literally the entire plotline, after going through this epic escape scene from the Spring Court back into the Night Court, he gets sent on a mission. We don't hear from him until like the final pages, in which we discover he's actually achieved nothing, and the entire time he just sort of bumped into Feyre's dad, who'd already achieved the goal he was setting out to do. And so his whole sort of mission was just completely pointless, and I didn't really understand why that happened. It almost felt like he'd been forgotten about in the writing process. But ultimately a good book with just a few flaws in my opinion. The next book I'm going to talk about is Between Two Thorns by Newman. Now this one was the August book for my book club Squabbling Dragons. I will leave that link down below, that's over on Goodreads. Now this one is sort of an urban fantasy YA book set in London and in a fantastical world. In this world there are basically 3 different realities. There's the Fey world, the in-between, and the mundane world, so the normal reality, our world with humans in it. And the Fey Toucher sort of are people that are mostly human but with connections to the Fey world. Now the main character in this one, Kathy, wants to escape living in the in-between area. It's very backwards, time progresses so much more slowly, so everyone's sort of stuck in this Regency England sort of ridiculously sexist world. And fair enough, she wants to get away from that, so by winning herself a scholarship of sorts from the elders, if you will, she manages to get out, go live in Manchester and go to university. But she also plans to run away, so after spending a certain amount of time there, she sort of disappears into the mundane world and the Fae can't find her. So the story follows on from that and all the troubles that she gets into and the different tiffs between the Fae and the normal people. So parallel in Kathy's story, there's another character called Max. Now in this world there is such a thing called dislocated souls. Now Max is what is called an arbiter, and basically for them to be a policing force successfully, their souls are dislocated from their consciousness, I suppose, and put into a storage. That means that he's able to respond to situations without getting emotionally involved or swayed by doubt or things like that. It's just pure logic, which was a really, really interesting concept, and there are several plot twists in there where that comes into play. So it was a really good book. It started off quite slow, but ultimately was a really addictive book. There are 5 books in this series and I really want to continue on with it. I think it's such a fascinating world, and I think that Newman can really build on what she's done in this one. Yeah, I don't have any spoilery discussions for this one, but I did rate it a 4 out of 5 stars, and yeah, would definitely recommend this one. The next book I'm going to discuss is The Demolished Man by Alfred. Now this is a classic sci-fi novel and it has a very interesting setting. I picked this one up because when I read the blurb I was like, yep, I need this in my life. It is set in a world in the future where the police are all telepathic. They can read everyone's minds, which means that the crime rate is really low. And so the plot of this one is that a man actually manages to commit murder by shooting someone in the head. Now, that's just literally unheard of in this world, so the whole plot of it is the equivalent of their police force trying to work out who committed the murder and how they managed to commit it. And it's just really cool how Bester has kind of explored this idea of how you would get around someone reading your mind when they are really, really good at it, the sort of techniques you involve to form blocks in your mind. It was really cool, and that doubled with the fact that it's sort of this extreme sci-fi world where there are multiple planets and people living in different planets and different colonies and different blah blah blah, etc. It was really cool. I did rate it a 3 out of 5 stars, and the reason I rated it low, considering I have quite a high opinion of it, was that it was a little bit difficult to read. It was published in 1953, I believe, so the language is a little bit older. You know, it's a bit more formal, I suppose, than the sci-fi we read these days. And there were just lots of paragraphs or sentences that I just didn't quite understand, so that was where my lower rating came for this one. But if you're interested in that plot premise, it's not a long book at all, so I'd recommend giving it a go and having a little read of a classic sci-fi. And the last book I have to show you today is RoseBlood by A.G. Howard. Now, I just finished this one yesterday and I loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and it's just got me so excited about this author again. I love Howard's works. I'm a huge fan of her Splintered trilogy. If you don't know what that one is, it is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and it's my favourite Alice in Wonderland retelling, period. And in fact, if you don't know, I have a huge obsession with Alice in Wonderland retellings. I can't stop reading them. If you say Alice in Wonderland, I am there, and it's because of Howard. But this book is a Phantom of the Opera retelling, if you can't tell from the Maas. It's a modern day spin on the classic tale, and it combines Howard's original ideas with the original story and with like the actual inspiration, the real Christine Daae, if you will. So the main character in this one is called Rune, and she basically has this compulsion that when she hears an aria or a female operatic piece, she can't help but sing, and she sings it like full force, and it's incredible, and everyone's like, whoa. And it's becoming a problem because it's kind of weird when you just burst out into an opera song in the middle of like a shopping centre, for example. So her mum sends her off to Paris. She originally lives in America, and she goes to this school called RoseBlood. And her aunt works in that school as well, which is where the connection comes from. It's a very prestigious school to get into, and they hope that by being there she might be able to master her song or distract from it with the school work that they're doing here. Just hoping that some result might eventuate. Of course, that's when the Phantom retelling comes into it. So RoseBlood, the school, is known to have some ties to the Phantom legend, and indeed the Phantom does haunt this place, and there's another character called Thorns who comes into play as well. So I don't want to give too much more away, but just know that Rune is a very interesting character. The Phantom is one of the most complex characters I feel like I've ever read, that poor tormented soul, and Thorn is one of my new favourite YA heroes. Like, he was He was just incredible. I really liked it. I really liked the sort of mystery setting to this book. It was really, really cool. Now I do have some spoilery discussions to talk about for this one, so I'm going to put the image back up again, so mute your volume if you don't want to hear it and turn your volume back on when it disappears. The main thing I wanted to discuss with this one is the element of psychic vampires. I really didn't see that coming, and it totally threw me off kilter for a bit when Thorns starts saying that, you know, people of our kind are psychic vampires who feed off people's emotions to get energy and extend their lifetime. I just thought that was such a cool concept. I feel like Howard never fails to impress when she comes to her retellings. There's so much effort put into it, but I really, really enjoyed that, and I loved the twin flame concept. So instead of having soulmates, they have a split soul in two bodies. That was awesome. I just think this book has everything, and I just adored it. You know, I'd love to read more about Thorn, especially with his backstory being as tragic as it was. So this was definitely a 4 out of 5 star rating for me. It did start a little slowly, just didn't quite hit the 5-star mark for me, but I really recommend it to anyone out there who likes the Phantom of the Opera story. Okie dokie, so those are the 4 books that I have to review for you today. And as a quick note, I do review every book that I read over on my blog and on Goodreads. I will link my profile and my blog down below for you, so you can go check those out if you want to get full in-depth breakdown thoughts of what I thought of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, or let me know if you think you might pick one of them up now. I hope you do. They were all really good reads. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.